Thank you for the job you guys do, the commitment and the skill you've all demonstrated over several years. It's most impressive. This is a quote from one of our new fans, and that is what today's episode of You, Me, and BTC will be more or less dedicated to. Not just this one message, but all of our fans. We want to cover this feedback. It was a very good message that we received. I love having support from all you amazing fans out there, so thank you for that. And we will get into this in a few moments. It's a paragraph or two here of awesome stuff. I am Daniel Brown, and I'm here with
John Stuart.
Yeah, and we will have Tim, hopefully, joining us shortly. I don't know what he's doing, but he said he got held up. So we're like, we'll just get started, have some fun, and he'll join up whenever he can. So, John, thanks for joining us. What's going on? We had you, well, I guess it was 2 weeks ago for our live show. So it hasn't been too long, but yeah, what's going on? How is it?
It's all right. Other than they just put out a warning, I guess, for the water in my area.
Oh man!
So
another
nothing
Flint
has
crisis.
Well, no, it's called like Giardia or something. Well, so they haven't actually detected any in the water, but I guess the chlorine levels at the purification plant were lower than normal, or lower than what they're supposed to be.
What is it, like a virus or something?
It's a parasite.
Oh boy! So if you are suddenly...
Nothing has been confirmed. They just said it's possible that it could be in water in these areas. So, like, they put out a recommendation to boil water.
So if you start getting eaten from the inside out, we'll know what happened, I guess.
Well, I think it's just like you get diarrhea and vomit. I don't actually think I don't know how serious it is. I'd imagine it's not, like, life-threatening.
So how did they even like notify you? Did they like just send you a letter?
Yeah, funny thing. They found out last Thursday, I guess, which today is Tuesday. And news articles came out today, and my friends like sent it around because like we all live in the area. They're like,
yeah.
Hey, anybody in these areas or in these neighborhoods, like check your water or whatever. And I still haven't actually gotten anything directly from the water company.
All right. So if you do die, you can sue them. So
yeah, probably.
Nice. Well, hopefully you survive. If you got to run to the bathroom, that's okay. I'll hold it over for a few minutes on my own. I think I can handle it. Before we get into this feedback, guys, I do want to mention again one of our awesome sponsors, Rollin. They are a Bitcoin casino, and I keep saying that they're one of the slickest, and I stick to that. It's a very clean website, but not plain and boring. It's hard to explain. It's literally just, it's fancy, but not obnoxious. I love it. It's Rollin, and actually, we have an offer for you. You can get some free millibits. Nothing crazy. I guess at today's prices, it's more than $1, so that's cool. But you can get some, go grab your free $1, try it out. If you hate it, fine, but you might love it. And the way that you can get your free 1.5 millibits is by going on Twitter. Our username is at you, me, and BTC. And you can mention Rollin and mention at you, me, and BTC, and mention your username. And then you'll get 1.5 millibits. And when I say your username, that's your Rollin username, so that they know where to credit the free Bitcoin. If you want to check out the Bitcoin Dice site, you can head to you, me, and BTC.com/Rollin, ROLLIN. And luckily this is a podcast, so I don't have to be too specific. If you missed any of the details there, just back up a little bit and learn how to get your free millibits. You, me, and BTC.com/Rollin. Okay, so I guess we'll just jump right into this feedback. This is from Mathew O'Keefe on Twitter, and I think he's commented a little bit on YouTube as well. He says that he's only heard about our show 6 weeks ago, and he's already churned through 58 episodes. God bless you, man. That's good work. I don't know where
it's
you
like 10 a week.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. I didn't even think I was thinking 58 episodes is a lot in general, but you're right. That's a lot, especially a lot for 6 weeks. If you want to check him out on Twitter, I'm sure he has lots of great things to say. It's Mathew with one T, O'Keefe, Okeeefe. He is also a supporter on Patreon. It is without a doubt the best way for you to support us monetarily if you are so inclined. And you can find that at meandbtc.com/feed us. Throw us some bread or whatever. And that's where that is. We are halfway to our first goal, which will provide special benefits for patrons only. So that's one of the reasons you should do it, is because if once we reach a goal, we'll regularly put out stuff just for patrons. Plus, there are other perks that you can look over while you're there. So yeah, John. So this is a Twitter message from Mathew, and I got it just yesterday, which was Monday. You'll be hearing this on Thursday, and he in last week's episode. Oh, geez, that's another long story. I've already been talking for a few minutes here, and I want to turn it over to John. But yeah, I'll get this out. Last week's episode, which was actually originally recorded like 3 weeks ago, and we had to delay the release. So if any of you were confused about that, there might have been some number. We might have said the wrong episode number in there or something. That's what happened. But where was I going with that? Oh, yeah, we read some YouTube comments because we love getting comments anywhere. YouTube, our own website, Twitter, whatever. So we read some comments from fans and had a good time. And we also called for more feedback and more comments. And I'm assuming that this is why Mathew decided to shoot us this message. And he also, I believe we also asked people to tell us what they liked and what they want to hear. And Mathew included 3 specific points that I think will be plenty to get through a whole show. That's why we love your feedback, because literally you shoot us one Twitter message and all of a sudden we've got a whole show that our fans are bound to love because they asked for it. So that's why your feedback is absolutely perfect. So here's where I turn it over to John. Will you read us his number one point? His first question, anyway. I don't know if it's his number one, as in like the most important. But yeah, read us his number one point and give us any thoughts on that if you have some.
Yeah. Okay. Point number 1. Satoshi. Do you think he or she gets enough credit as a genius? Can you win a Nobel Prize in absentia? Do you continue to be amazed about how one person could make such a contribution?
Yeah, this is actually, I'm assuming, I can't promise this, but I think it's highly likely that this is in response to episode 98. I just looked it up. It's called Satoshi's Nobel Nomination, or at least that's the first half of the show. And yeah, Satoshi was, I don't know if he was officially nominated or if, I'm reading the show notes now. It says potentially nominated for a Nobel Prize in economics. And I don't even remember what all we went through, so go listen to it if you want to. The short link would be ymb.tc/E98, episode 98. That's how we do our short links. And so I'm sure we covered some of this, but we'll get into it a little bit more because even I don't remember. What do we think about Satoshi? Is he a frickin' genius? Does he deserve, global recognition? I don't necessarily have a lot of respect for the Nobel Prize Committee, so I don't know if this is the prize that I would want him to win. But yeah, I don't know, John. Is he a filthy genius that deserves all kind of recognition? I mean, if we love Bitcoin so much, maybe the answer has to be yes. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, so we still don't know 100% that it's even one guy. That's
true.
Still up for debate, I guess. Although it seems that a lot of people just tend to assume that now.
Right.
I don't know. I think maybe. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it is a tough one. because I do love Bitcoin. I do believe that it helps almost everyone in the world, or at least it could. But, geez, I don't know. I guess that means yes. It's tough to say yes because I don't want to say it's amazing and that no one else could have done it, because a lot of people could have come up with this idea, and there were other contributors. There's actually Adam Back created Hashcash, which I can't remember the specifics, but it has some similarities with Bitcoin. And a lot of people say that he contributed to Bitcoin. So is he the genius that deserves the Nobel Prize? And that's just one example. I'm sure there are countless other contributors to all these ideas. Everyone that helps develop encryption, everyone that helps develop, even just like, I don't know, GitHub, the people that create open source projects that allow Bitcoin to be developed by the entire world. All this stuff, there's so many contributors. So yeah, sure, I love Satoshi. I think he did some great stuff, but so did a ton of other people. Now, I also don't want to sound like a hippie and be like, oh, participation trophies for everyone. So for that reason, I'll go ahead and say sure. Yeah, I don't think everyone deserves a trophy, and I think Satoshi is more deserving than a whole lot of people. I think he did a lot of great things for people in need, especially it's more evident now than ever in countries like Venezuela and India, and all of that is thanks to Satoshi. So, all right, I'll go ahead and say yes, he deserves a lot of recognition.
Yeah, I think I pretty much agree with that.
Right.
I mean, the only thing that I would maybe say is just that I don't know all of the things that deserve the Nobel Prize also, and whether or not there might be things that are more deserving, or people
true.
more deserving.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, as far as the nomination, sure, I don't see why not.
That's one of the reasons I'm horrible at picking favorite anything. I can't pick favorite movies. I can barely even pick a favorite color because I'm always worried, like, well, what if I forgot that one movie that was even better? Or like my favorite episode of a show, like, oh, what if I forget about one? Like, yeah, I love this one, but what if there's one I'm forgetting? And that's totally fair. Yeah, there might be, maybe he shouldn't win it because there could be more valuable contributions made recently. But yeah. Nice. The other question here from Mathew is, can you win a Nobel Prize in absentia? We probably mentioned that question in that previous episode, and I don't think we know the answer to it, unfortunately. So I have no idea. Whatever their rules are, their rules are. Yeah, but like I said, I don't even... Nobel Prize, I mean, Obama won a Nobel Peace Prize, and he dropped how many bombs over the last 8 years? So I don't have a ton of respect for the Nobel Prize Committee, so...
Yeah.
And speaking of presidents and governments and bombs, we'll get into that a whole lot in number 3. But for now, we will jump to number 2. John, what's number 2?
Number 2 is Andreas Antonopoulos. Boring story, but I got into Bitcoin after hearing him speak about it at a TED Talk. If Andreas was found to lack credibility, do you think the revolution would be over?
Okay. So I actually have a decent backstory for this that I was actually thinking about recently before Matt even came to me with this message. And I told you a little bit about that, John, and I'll get into it in a second, but I want you to go first. Any thoughts before I explain a lot more details? Any thoughts on what would happen if somehow Andreas was considered a traitor, or he promoted bad software, or just, I don't even know, destroyed consensus, whatever. Could he do anything bad to Bitcoin?
I think yes, but I will say that at this point in time, it's probably not nearly as bad as it would have been if something happened, say, like 4 years ago.
True.
I think he's done a whole lot. He's gotten a lot of people into Bitcoin. He was the guy that spoke in front of the Canadian Senate or House or whatever it was.
Right.
He is definitely one of the biggest public faces of Bitcoin.
Right.
But I think it's gotten big enough that we would be able to make it past something happening with him.
Right.
I think, yeah. I honestly, like, I haven't even heard anything about him at all recently, and I haven't been really not keeping up with Twitter recently, so I don't know, like, things he's been saying on Twitter. Like, I've kind of, in some ways, like, don't think about, I don't know, I just feel like he used to be a bigger deal.
Right.
Not that he's, like, in a slump or something. It's more just that, like, it's gotten bigger than him.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's all some good points. Bitcoin is big enough now that it's probably resilient to just some celebrity trying to take it down, for the most part. Not saying it's impossible, but yeah. So here's a little bit of this backstory here. We did in episode number 148. So again, short link would be ymb.tc/E148. We covered Bcoin from it's created by Purse, and it's just an alternative implementation of Bitcoin. It's still Bitcoin, same network, but the nodes, the miners and whatever, the wallets, the full node wallets and stuff, they just run a little bit differently, but it's the same network, same protocol, same consensus. For now, anyway. Some people suggest that they could create a different consensus. Whatever. That's the issue. And so how does this get us to Antonopoulos? Antonopoulos really supports Bcoin, and he really supports, like, the Lightning Network. I don't believe that he supports Bitcoin Unlimited with the bigger block sizes. I couldn't swear to that, but I don't think so. But here's the reason I think this is relevant. We also had a conversation, at least I did, on Twitter with one of our other biggest fans. I'm gonna bash you just a tiny bit here, Cyril, but I want you to know I seriously love you. I'm so glad you're around and listening, and one of our biggest fans and tweeters and promoters and stuff. This is Cyril Blank. We've talked about him before on the show. He's actually joined us on the show as one of our biggest fans. So we seriously love you. But we had a discussion because Cyril was just like, I don't like Bitcoin. I don't want Bitcoin because of Roger Ver. And Roger Ver is behind Bitcoin Unlimited, which has to do with the block size increase. And that's what I'm wondering. Well, what if somebody said the same thing about Antonopoulos? What if someone was like, well, Antonopoulos supports Bcoin and the Lightning Network, and I think those two pieces of software could destroy Bitcoin. And SegWit's another big one that Antonopoulos loves to death. And I generally think I would agree with him, but I'm not an expert on all that stuff, on the technicalities. But yeah, so anyway, it was the same idea. That's why I think it's a decent backstory, because there are people that think Roger Ver became a traitor to Bitcoin and is trying to destroy it or whatever, or he's in bed with the government. And because Antonopoulos likes certain projects and doesn't like certain projects, I'm sure it would be easy to say the same kinds of things about him. And I got to be honest, I can't see myself really getting upset with Antonopoulos. He was one of my earliest Bitcoin role models, I guess. And to this day, he's one of the very, very, very few people that is kind of a Bitcoin celebrity that I even follow. I mean, people talk about even Roger Ver, like they call him Bitcoin Jesus, and I hardly even know what he does and what he talks about and what he's behind. I just hear bits and pieces here and there, even though I'm a Bitcoin podcast host. So that's, and I know that might sound bad. How are you a Bitcoin podcast host if you don't follow all this stuff or all these people, whatever? But honestly, I think that's what makes our show great in some ways, is we bring a completely different perspective with a completely different atmosphere. So anyway, but that's unrelated. Yeah, I don't know. I'm seeing Tim just got online, so I will bring him on now and ask him what he thought. We'll be back in about 2 seconds for you listeners. It might take a minute or two for us.
You, Me, and BTC is your Bitcoin and Liberty podcast. Cryptocurrency decrypted.
We're sitting down with Mr. Jason King.
If you want to with the government, feed homeless people, man.
Jeffrey Tucker.
What's possible in the Bitcoin space sounds a little like science fiction, but if you wait enough time, it becomes a reality.
Angela Keaton from antiwar.com.
This is what the United States does. It involves killer robots. For Bitcoiners, this is a way to get around that.
Subscribe at YouMeAndBTC.com.
All right, guys, so we are back now with the magnificent Tim Baker. How's it going, Tim?
Oh, thank you, Daniel. It's doing great, especially after that. It's probably the most positive introduction I've had in a while.
True. Why would I call you magnificent? What happened to me? How much have I been drinking? Holy crap.
Nobody will ever know.
So, yeah, Tim, I brought you up to speed a little bit just now, so I'll wrap it all up here and turn it over to you for some thoughts. We are covering Andreas Antonopoulos and what would happen if he was found to lack credibility. I don't know, maybe if Bitcoin turned aggressive or turned against the consensus and Andreas supports Bitcoin. Or what if SegWit, ruined Bitcoin and Andreas supports SegWit. Anything like this. And I was saying, I love Antonopoulos. He was one of my earliest and one of the few people that I really respect in the space. The other people I know a little bit about, I follow here and there, but none nearly as much as Antonopoulos. But for the same reason that I don't want to hate Roger Ver just because he supports Bitcoin or whatever else. For that same reason, I also don't want to love and drool over Antonopoulos. So I want to seriously consider this possibility that maybe he could lack credibility. And so I want to know, Tim, what do you think? Is it possible that he's out to get somebody or something in Bitcoin? Could he ruin Bitcoin? Is that even possible? Any thoughts? Go for it.
I think he's definitely has some kind of a motive as to why he's part of Bitcoin. Everybody has a motive for
yeah,
pretty much
everybody, everything.
Yeah,
is it a bad motive though?
Nah, not necessarily, but I don't think it matters as much because I think that the thing, like how I said that Antonopoulos probably has some kind of ulterior motive or anything. Some part of him is backing Bitcoin, is doing something because it has some kind of motive that maybe we wouldn't agree with. That's not really an issue because part of the thing is it's Bitcoin, the technology. But if it is something that would affect it, that's part of the problem where you start following people instead of following an idea or a technology where, I mean, even an idea can get changed pretty quickly and a technology can, but people are so fickle and just, even if they're not fickle, you're never going to find someone, or you're almost never going to find someone that you agree with on all the important points in your life. Everyone has some weird thing they put above everything else and like, no, this is very important. And then you take that and you put a technology behind that and you put how anal and how obsessive people get about stuff like this. And that's going to be just multiplied by someone's going to believe in something that you don't. To the question about how would it affect things if he like all of a sudden came out for a push towards being more compliant with government regulations, stuff like that. I don't know how much it would affect me. I like Antonopoulos, but I like him for he's good at talking, he's good at speaking, he's good at expressing what the possibilities of Bitcoin are and what it can do right now. Right. But I don't see him as, and I mean maybe I'm wrong, but I've never heard of a lot of people being like, anything Antonopoulos says, I'll do that. I might want to rescind that because I can probably think of something where that was true. But anyway.
Well, yeah, I'm sure. Well, like I said, it's the same thing. Like Cyril was saying that he wanted nothing to do with Bitcoin just because Roger Ver supported Bitcoin. And that's not, that works both ways. For the same reason that I think that's absurd, I also don't want people to worship Antonopoulos just because he was one of the early celebrities in Bitcoin and talks well. Like you can't get that way about people. You can't say that everything that someone does is bad, and you can't say that everything that someone does is good. I think I said that right. So I would agree with that. Yeah.
yeah, anytime you play, it's not a good idea to place your trust or why you support something just because somebody else does on some kind of an endorsement. Because then as soon as that person has a problem, like Subway sucks, but everyone started boycotting Subway after Jared found out he touched some underage kid. That should not have been why you quit eating Subway. It should have been because it's awful and their bread sucks. And it's Subway. It's so old. It's not any better for you than Wendy's or anything. Just go to McDonald's.
It's fresh, Tim, though. They say it in every commercial.
Eat fresh. Yeah, see, no, the problem is you can't use Eat Fresh anymore after he diddled a little kid. So, whatever.
I used to love Subway. I think that I ate too much of it. That's the thing. It has, like, everything there has a Subway taste.
Honestly,
you know what I'm talking
it does.
about?
I used to like it.
Like, you can smell it from so far away. Like, you can walk past the Subway and smell the Subway smell. And, like, you get the taste in your mouth. And I used to really like it. And it's just like, I ate way too much of it. And now I can't. I don't know. I might be able to eat it again now. It might have been long enough since I had it. But there was a while where I got really grossed out by it.
This is hilarious to me because I think we've actually covered this before on the show. I want to say we were talking about inflation. This is a guess. I think we were talking about inflation, and somebody brought up like a pizza place that had prices going up, and then somehow that got us onto Subway. I don't know, but if we cover something non-Bitcoin twice in the show, it must be true.
Yeah. Also, if you follow the show religiously enough, you might live long enough to see us talk about the same thing twice.
Yeah.
I don't know whether that's a good thing or a bad thing.
Oh, geez. Well, I guess we more or less covered the Antonopoulos thing. I mean, the YMB answer is, well, he might be right, he might be wrong. So, geez, that's something that we do mention every show. Well, yeah, maybe, I don't know. So there it is for today's show. But yeah, that's Antonopoulos. Are we ready to move on to my favorite question and something we could go on about forever? Honestly, almost the whole show has been about this. But number 3, if you have nothing else to add, guys, I guess we'll send it to Tim to read number 3. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready, Daniel.
All right, do it. Go, now.
I'm Australian. We're very trusting of the government. So
well, hold on, Tim. This is without a doubt.
That was my Australian accent.
This is without a doubt one of our top 3 or 4 fans, so we're going to go ahead and not make fun of him.
I wasn't making fun of him. That was my Australian accent.
All right, it was terrible.
Did it not sound like Australian accent?
No, go.
I'm Australian. We're very trusting of the government. Okay, I'm Australian. We're very trusting of government, so it's which party, not which system. I've therefore been fascinated by your libertarian discussions. What made you guys first start to distrust government? Thanks again. Peace out.
Wow, this, I gotta say, I love this. First of all, he said peace at the end, which I normally say at the end of episodes lately. And I'm a big supporter of just saying the word peace. I don't really know why. I like peace. Whatever, maybe I'm a hippie, whatever. All right, anyway, back to the main question. Oh, geez, I love this question, too, because until I read this message, I knew we talked about libertarian stuff and anarchist type stuff. I knew we talked about freedom, and I knew we talked about freedoms with the government, but I never, ever imagined that we would actually start to get people thinking about it. I thought we were only speaking to people that more or less agreed with us, and I never really even considered that we would be talking to people that would actually be, somewhat open to these ideas, and that they would be new ideas, and that we would be able to share stuff like this. Literally, it never dawned on me that we could be doing that until just yesterday or whenever this message came through. So that makes me excited. I praise Free Talk Live a lot, and we had one of the main hosts, Ian Freeman, on the show before. I praise them for being good with outreach and convincing people and spreading, helpful ideas to people that haven't heard them before. I never imagined that we would be doing the same thing, and this makes me proud. Maybe that's a little ooey gooey mushy, whatever, but it does.
Ooey gooey.
So first of all, Thanks for that, Matt. I'm so glad that, at least you're fascinated by it. Whether or not you agree, I'm glad you're taking an interest in it. But so Tim is one of our most serious, I would say, apolitical, anti-government vocals, whatever. I mean, we all are to some extent, but Tim seems to be the most open and edgy or whatever about it. So I want to turn it over to Tim here.
I sound like a 13-year-old.
Maybe you are. I
hate the government. Man.
I never saw your birth certificate. But so I want to get your response here, Tim, first. What first made you start to question the government? When did it start for you? Were you 13 when it started? Were you 3 when it started?
I was like 12, and I'm like, I want to hate something.
That's probably
not that far off. Except you weren't 12. I think you were older than that. Because when you were 12, you were still a Nazi.
Exactly. I was like, I believe in Trump, and he will conquer America in 11 years. Yeah, no, I guess it'd probably be something with Adam Kokesh. Might have been it was John sending me a video of Adam Kokesh dancing in the
the Lincoln
Jefferson
Memorial. Yeah, whatever. Right.
And then from there, I went into all kinds of strange amalgamations of libertarianism.
Oh, that reminds me that Adam Kokesh and Christopher Cantwell, had a debate in the last week or two, which I started but didn't finish. That's probably worth watching. Anyway, that's unrelated.
I watched a decent amount of it.
Okay. All right. So is that it? I mean, it's just activism. Somebody said, hey, somebody was, if it was Kokesh, somebody was explicitly trying to get you to notice that, hey, this is absurd, that they're going to arrest you for swaying your body in this big chunk of marble that they put up on this land. And is that what you're saying? That's fine if that's the answer. I'm just making sure. Is that pretty much what it was, activism? And you're like, oh, wow, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say it's probably... I think I've looked at it before. Like maybe I'd heard of Ron Paul a little bit before, and then Kokesh kind of came in. But it was around 2012, about 5-6 years ago.
Yeah. I want to piggyback on that because we have kind of similar... I mean, it was happening at the same time that we were finding out about this stuff. But I think, as far as that Adam Kokesh video, I think it, started for me as, conservative, hawkishness. And I think that, led me to people like Ron Paul or Adam Kokesh because they had the hawkish thing, and it was all just about I don't know, stingy conservatism where you just don't want to spend money on anything and stuff like that. And I think that's how it started, and that's probably just has a lot to do with how I was raised. And then after seeing that that Kokesh video of him getting beaten up and stuff, then you start seeing videos of cops beating people or even killing them. And
right.
Yeah, it's weird. I never really thought about where it started for me because I just never did. But now that I think about it, it did start as more of a hawkish thing, and then you find these people and you see somebody get beat up in the Jefferson Memorial, and you're like, there's something
doesn't make sense.
Yeah, something's messed up with that. Or you see a guy get pulled over at a traffic stop, and then they end up ripping apart his car and beating him down on the side of the road and arresting him.
Right.
And it just doesn't sit right. And then it just keeps going from there. But so as far as where I got started, I think that's the answer. It just started from sort of this pull yourself up by your bootstraps American thing, and then because of that, I found people who were like that. I think people like Kokesh, and they had this really standoffish kind of position, or not. I don't know. I don't want to say that in a way that they were offensive or they were rude to people, although some people might say that. It was more just there was attitude to it. Right. And I think that's how it started. And then I realized that like behind that there was actually stuff going on. But yeah, I do also want to say that I really like this question a lot for a couple reasons. One, because it made me think about that, and I hadn't really thought about it before. And two, because I think in some ways it like reveals our biases a little. Because as much as we complain about people like loving the government and being all statist or like whatever you want to call it, whatever like bad word you want to call them.
Right.
It is way less weird for people to mistrust the government in America than it is in other countries. And I don't want to like presume to say why that is, but it's more part of our culture to distrust the government than it is in other places. And I guess I should say along with that like I do think that in other countries it's not necessarily just that people have been brainwashed more or something. I think sometimes people who are like libertarian or lean that way, they don't acknowledge the fact enough that there is like a spectrum that governments are on. Like some of them are worse than others. Just because you don't like government in general doesn't mean that some aren't worse than others. So I think like in a lot of countries it does make sense that people are more trusting of government because their governments are more trustworthy.
That could be true, but I'll be honest, I would guess that it's a very limited degree. And here's why. Again, it's a guess, but I'm wondering if maybe you think that Americans are more open to distrusting the government just because you're somewhat familiar with the liberty community. Because for the most part, I would guess, 90% of Americans believe just what Matt said here. It's which party, not which system. 90% of Americans are either Republican or Democrat, and that's it. They choose a party. They don't care. They never even consider that maybe the government itself is a bad idea.
I think I agree with that. I think that people, especially, they will say that. I guess what I think is that we don't respect government as much as other countries do.
Okay, yep,
like people are more willing to badmouth or be suspicious of government. I don't hear people saying that they don't want government, but like how often do you hear people who are just like saying, like, it's so common for people to just be like, oh, politicians are all liars, they're all scumbags, but we just gotta vote for them. Like that's the attitude here. Yeah. I think in other places it's less that people actually do respect their governments more.
Yep.
And that's what I'm talking about with the spectrum, because I think there are a lot of places where there is more of a like understanding between the people and the government. It seems like there's more like they're thinking the same way. Whether or not you think that's the right way to think or not is a different question. But
a lot of other places started from like more of a monarchy thing too, where like a king versus a president, whenever like people will, you associate more with your king, you associate more as in like he's gonna be good. Where a president or something like that, I like what you said, John, where we go, oh, you can't trust them all, but we're still gonna vote for him. Other places go, well, the government has it figured out, we have to listen. That doesn't mean that they actually necessarily go out of their way to celebrate it more or anything like that. It's just there is a different culture where we're kind of our country. I mean, there's multiple countries, but there are countries built off of, well, we fought for our independence, and other ones more you came from a long line. The country's been established for a while, and I mean they still do have, a lot of them still do have that kind of idea of monarchy, or at least like there is a king or a queen or some kind of monarchy there as a figurehead at least. And I think a figurehead that idea is a little bit different than something where we think a government should always be representative of me and of my thoughts and of my ideas, not this is from a long line of tradition and that's why they're there. But I mean, pretty much equals out to the same thing. It's just how we rationalize why we're okay with that government or this government or...
I think it's also just, well, I mean, you were saying this, our country, just the way that it came about was from rebellion. So I think it's just more in our like heritage and DNA. And we've talked about this before, that let's say something like socialism, like the idea that all these people are going to share resources and not have as much privately owned stuff. Not like, I guess there's like degrees of it, how much privately owned things you have and how much is publicly owned. But like the idea that people share things publicly is not bad in and of itself. Like the thing that we would disagree with is the force behind it. And there are countries that are way more socialist than America, but the people are way more okay with it than... It's just that public opinion isn't as divided, so people tend to be more happy with the government because there's not as many different competing ideas, so the idea that wins is usually like okay with more people.
Right. Yeah, I'm backing up a little bit here, but my original question was, well, wait, doesn't in America it's also which party, not which system. And that may be true, but you said then, John, that still, despite that, people are more open to just questioning the government. And I would agree with that as well. As much as I would say that 90x% of people are Republicans or Democrats, I also believe that 90x% of people would agree that the government and that politicians are liars and thieves. I mean, even the people that, they always have these polls about like approval ratings and, 50% of people approve of Congress or whatever. Even the people that say they approve of Congress or the president or whatever would probably agree that politicians are liars or thieves or thieves, probably both. And that's just an accepted... I mean, the word politician is almost a derogatory term in America. It just is. Even the people that worship the flag still would say that, that's those filthy politicians be taking my money or whatever. And, even the Green Party or, the Hillary lovers or the Bernie lovers, they loved Bernie because they thought that the politicians were corrupt. They loved Trump because they thought that the politicians were corrupt. They loved Hillary because they thought that the politicians were corrupt, right? So everyone in America knows that they might not follow that corruption to the end of anarchy, but they at least start with, government's corrupt. What are we going to do about it? And then they try to vote themselves out of it or something like that. Would you guys agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So I want to, we're pretty close to probably wrapping up here, but I do want to get out bits and pieces of my story. And honestly, the best part about this is that my story about how I first came to distrust the government starts in episode 1 or maybe even episode 2. But I've said this before on the show, literally my journey from conservatism into libertarianism and into anarchy did not start until this show started. So you can listen to the episodes and hear, like I said, episode 1 or 2 is where I was sitting there with Tim and asking, well, why do people love Bitcoin? Because the state can't control it. Why does that make people love it? And you just go on from there, and that's my journey. Because Tim and John were there before me, and they helped get me there, and Bitcoin helped get me there. So that's my story. I will say that certain elements of it or influences started even earlier. A lot of people say, a lot of people that podcasts I listen to or shows or whatever in Liberty, a lot of people say, my parents are still statists. They think I'm crazy. And fortunately for me, my parents are still conservative as opposed to libertarian or whatever. But I do have a decent amount of respect for their distrust of government. And I do have a decent amount of respect for the ideas that they put in me that helped get me to libertarianism. My dad, has said before, like, yes, he's a conservative, but he said geez, if I was president, I'd get rid of the schooling. I'd get rid of public schools. I'd get rid of public anything. I'd get rid of all these programs and agencies and all this stuff. And I'm right there with him. That helped. Those ideas helped get me to where I am. So fortunately, my family is not as crazy as some libertarians' parents are. So anyway. All right, guys, are we ready for advice of the week or any last thoughts? I will take your silence as probably a yes, and we'll get into it then. Advice of the week, guys. Anything good for us?
I guess I want to go back to saying that I appreciated the fact that that last question of his made me realize a little bit that the place that we're coming from is a lot different than where other people are coming from. And I guess it's probably like anybody who listens to this show regularly would know that I'm probably like the most moderate out of the three of us, or like least sure of where I stand on a lot of issues that we were talking about. And I think it's worth like saying that most of the people I know are statists, and I also don't think that most of them are insane. So like there's a lot of sane people who do believe that government is a good idea. And just like having that question from this guy, like I don't know. I think just my advice is to consider people who have different backgrounds than you and come from completely different places, and maybe like be open to considering other people's opinions too, or their side of things.
Nice. Yeah, that's good stuff. I love those ideas. I was listening to, again, Free Talk Live just minutes ago before we started recording, and they were having a similar discussion of, I don't want to get into all of it, but yeah, they were talking about like, one person was like, I don't like the cops, but I try to understand why they believe what they believe and what they actually think they're doing before I just bash them. And yeah, I didn't agree with everything that this woman was saying, but I do with some of it. Like, as much as I dislike the cops, I do want to know, like, I'm sure in their minds they're doing what is right, and it's worth considering why they think that. So I'm not a hippie, but I do think that a lot of people are good. So anyway, don't want to get into all of it, but good stuff. Tim, you got anything for us, or do you want me to go? I think I'm ready.
Yeah, I didn't know I was on the hippie dipshit podcast now, apparently from you two. No, yeah, I mean, I guess I'll kind of follow with you guys. I wouldn't agree that people are good, people are shitty, but at the same time,
I meant when I said that Tim was the most edgy and hardcore out of all of us.
No, I'm not hardcore. I just don't have any kind of real thoughts in my head, so I covered up with just being angry at people.
I mean, I said people are sane, not that they're good. Most people are sane.
True.
I mean, if most people aren't sane, then what does sane even mean? Isn't it like defined by what most people think?
Yeah, that's true.
My mind was just blown. Yeah, I think even if you don't agree with people, even if you're so far against, I can't deal with this, I can't be around people who are okay with stealing money, I can't be around people who are okay with killing people as long as it's the right kind of people. Besides maybe putting out there that you think that people should be allowed to take care of themselves, they shouldn't be forced to do things, there's not much help to be gained from just lashing out at people. Most people don't seem to change their ideas and change what they think just based off of getting made fun of or getting put down, which, I mean, unless you want to, I guess Donald Trump did get the presidency through memes and people shaming other people, so it might work. But focus more on, I definitely said something like this before, but definitely focus more on make yourself better, read some stuff, read other people's viewpoints, look into it, if nothing else, just so then you can better argue and make them feel bad. But focus on yourself. What were the questions? Oh, don't like have somebody else that you then just follow whatever they do. Because that was partly my problem when I started.
Oh, right.
It was any libertarian person was, oh no, they're great. Oh wait, they're just a shitty person like everybody else. Fuck.
Yeah, I definitely think that people should seek out stuff that's different than what they think. I've been thinking about this recently, and I would love to see an experiment done to prove whether or not this is true. But I have this suspicion that you'll start to believe whatever you hear the most.
That's definitely it.
If I started not listening to any libertarian stuff or anything like that, and all I listened to was socialist talk radio or really hard Marxist left stuff, I feel like I would start becoming one if that was all I listened to.
All right, here's what we'll do. We'll get a bunch of people, trap them on this island, and tell them that they have to push this button over and over and over to save the world, and see if they believe it. I've been watching Lost, so that's where that came from. But
watching Lost.
Yeah, good stuff, guys. Yes, definitely, Tim. You mentioned briefly there. Don't just follow everything that someone says, and also don't just hate on everything that someone says. Be open to different ideas and listen to different ideas. My advice, guys, is about the entire show. Be a fan. Be a fan of the You, Me, and BTC podcast. That's what gets all these discussions going, is when people listen, they love it, and they let us know what they're thinking, and then we have an awesome episode. So, yeah, leave us a comment, shoot us a message, email me, daniel@youmeandbtc.com. Listen to every episode. Oh, geez, I hesitate to mention our other biggest fans because I might be easily forgetting people, as we mentioned in the middle of the show there. But the people that come to mind are Cyril Blank on Twitter mostly, and Jeremy Bennett, who comments on YouTube now and then, and I believe he's listened to every single episode. You guys are the absolute best. So glad to have you. And even if you don't leave comments or email me or whatever, if you still listen, you are a solid human being. Thanks for being around, guys. Remember that if you are willing to support the show monetarily, get us towards some goals, get some new stuff going, and you get to receive your perks and patron-only special information and episodes or whatever. All of that can be found at youmeandbtc.com/feed-us. That's where you can get the details and support us. It is without a doubt one of the best ways to get behind the show. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us for episode number 160. Hopefully that's the actual number this time, and I won't have to flip things around like I did the last few weeks. And come back next Thursday for another awesome show. The music that you're listening to this second is from John Stuart. So thanks for that, John. Peace out, guys. See you next Thursday.
Bye-bye.